The next frontier may be bigger than Texas. It may be the moon, and beyond that, Mars. It looked toward Florida, Cape Canaveral, NASA, the Space Coast. But something extraordinary is happening hundreds of miles away. In the vast landscapes of Texas, rocket factories are rising. Launch pads are appearing beside highways and ranch land. Engineers are moving in, and some of the world's most ambitious space companies are betting their futures on one state, Texas. SpaceX has built its Starbase operation near the Gulf Coast. Houston remains a vital center for human spaceflight.
Flight, we are go for orbit.
And companies such as Axiom Space and Intuitive Machines are building the next generation of commercial space technology in the state. So why Texas? Is it simply about cheap land, low taxes, geography, or is something much bigger happening? Today, we uncover why Texas is becoming important frontiers for the commercial space industry. To understand Texas's space boom, you first have to understand Texas itself. For more than a century, the state built its economy industries that required enormous amounts of land, energy, engineering, and infrastructure, oil and gas, manufacturing, DeFel ecosystem. Texas developed a huge workforce of engineers.
The state also offers companies access to major transportation networks and a large labor market. And unlike many states, Texas has no state corporate or personal income tax. That doesn't automatically make Texas the perfect location for every company. But for capital-intensive industries, the combination can be extremely attractive. Is about as capital-intensive as an industry gets.
A rocket factory isn't a small office. It needs enormous buildings, testing facilities, storage areas, security. Texas has plenty of it. There is another reason Texas matters: physics. Launching a rocket into orbit is easier when you're closer to the equator. Earth is already rotating. A launch site can take advantage of that rotational speed, reducing some of the energy required to reach orbit. And rockets generally want to travel eastward. But there is another problem: safety. When a rocket launches, something can go wrong. That means launch companies need large areas where debris can fall without hitting heavily populated communities.
Texas offers something rare. Within the continental United States, a combination of southern latitude, enormous stretches of relatively open land, and access to the Gulf of Mexico.
The Texas Gulf Coast can provide favorable launch corridors over water, and West Texas offers enormous expanses of remote territory. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas,
these geographic characteristics are among the reasons Texas has become attractive to commercial space companies. But geography alone doesn't explain the Texas boom, because if it did, Texas would have dominated America's space industry decades ago. Something else changed: the space industry itself. For much of the 20th century, space exploration was dominated by governments. NASA built programs. Governments funded rockets. Military agencies controlled launch infrastructure. But then came a new era. Private companies began developing, and perhaps no company transformed this transition more dramatically than SpaceX. Founded in 2002, SpaceX pursued an idea that once sounded almost impossible. Instead of throwing away an expensive rocket after every launch, land it, refuel it, launch it again. That philosophy changed the economics of spaceflight, and SpaceX needed somewhere it could experiment aggressively. Texas offered an answer. In 2014, SpaceX announced its plans for a private spaceport at Boca Chica, near Brownsville. Construction accelerated in the following years. What began as a remote coastal site eventually became Starbase. And this is where Texas's space story became dramatically bigger. Imagine a rocket company where the factory, the test site, and the launch pad are all located in the same region. That's the idea behind Starbase. At Boca Chica, SpaceX has developed an enormous industrial complex dedicated to Starship. Starship is not simply another rocket. It is designed as a fully reusable. This is a transportation system capable of carrying massive payloads. That means SpaceX needs more than a launch pad. It needs a manufacturing machine, engine production, vehicle assembly, testing, launch infrastructure, and a workforce capable of operating all of it. Texas provides. The SpaceX's development philosophy relies heavily on building, testing, learning, and rebuilding. The closer the factory is to the launch site, faster engineers can move between production and testing. That can potentially shorten development cycles. And that is critical when the goal isn't simply to build one rocket. The goal is to build a system capable of launching again and again. The scale of the operation has also transformed the surrounding area.
SpaceX's workforce in South Texas has grown dramatically, while the company has continued expanding its facilities, and in 2025, the community surrounding the complex officially incorporated as the City of Starbase. The result is something unusual in modern America.
But SpaceX isn't the only major space company betting on Texas. In West Texas, another billionaire-backed company built its own space operation, Blue Origin.
Founded by Jeff Bezos, Blue Origin established its launch site near Van Horn, Texas. The location looks completely different from Starbase. Instead of the Gulf Coast, there is desert.
Instead of a massive coastal industrial complex, there is a remote testing and launch environment. Blue Origin's New Shepard system was designed for reusable. It carries people and research payloads above the atmosphere before returning to Earth. The West Texas environment offers something extremely valuable: privacy and space. It requires safety zones. It requires controlled airspace. And it benefits from having room to experiment. Texas can provide all of these. This is one reason the state is becoming more than just a launch destination. It is becoming a place where space companies can develop their technologies. But Texas's space story didn't begin with SpaceX. Long before private rockets, human spaceflight, NASA's Johnson Space Center became famous as mission control.
The words, "Houston, we have a problem," became part of global culture. For decades, NASA and its contractors built a deep aerospace ecosystem around the
knowledge, talent, suppliers, engineers. Now, the private space industry is building on top of that foundation. Companies such as Axiom Space are developing commercial space stations and other human spaceflight technologies. Intuitive Machines is working on lunar exploration, and Houston's growing spaceport ecosystem is attracting companies developing technologies for the commercial space economy. So Texas has something many and Houston's growing spaceport ecosystem is attracting companies developing technologies for the commercial space economy. So Texas has something many emerging space hubs don't start from scratch. The new space industry isn't starting from zero. It is building on decades of aerospace expertise. The most important transformation may not be the rockets themselves. It may be the supply chain. Engines, sensors, electronics, software, communications equipment, materials, computing hardware. And now, Texas already has major technology and semiconductor industries.
And in August 2026, SpaceX and Tesla announced plans for a massive semiconductor manufacturing complex in Texas called TerraFab. The company's
plans are set for a facility covering roughly 100 million square feet. It will produce chips for AI, robotics, and SpaceX. This will fuel. This is a major clue about where the space industry may be heading. The future isn't simply rocket, launch, satellite. It is becoming an integrated technology ecosystem: rocket manufacturing, satellites, AI, semiconductors, energy, communications, data centers, robotics. And Texas is trying to put many of those.
So what exactly are companies buying when they choose Texas? It's not just land. They're buying an environment. Texas promotes itself as a business-friendly state with a large, skilled workforce,
Infrastructure, and relatively light regulation. For space companies, that can be important. Rocket development moves quickly. Companies want to build facilities, test hardware, expand factories, hire workers, and secure large areas for operations. Texas has aggressively positioned itself to compete for those investments. But there is another side to the story.
Tax incentives and economic development programs can become controversial. Critics have questioned whether some incentives provide enough public benefit compared with the value companies receive.
SpaceX, for example, has pursued tax incentives connected to its operations in South Texas, prompting debate over jobs, public investment, and the benefits to local communities.
So Texas's strategy is powerful, but it isn't without disputed commercial launch capital. And it remains enormously important. Cape Canaveral has decades of infrastructure.
The U.S. Space Force, established launch complexes, aerospace suppliers, and a huge space workforce. Texas is not replacing Florida, at least not yet. The Dallas Fed notes that most U.S.
space launches still occur from Florida or California, with Texas accounting for only a minority. But the competition is changing. Florida represents the established space industry. Texas represents something different. A space industry designed around private companies, rapid development, massive manufacturing.
The two states may ultimately become complementary rather than competing. Florida can remain a major launch hub. Texas can become a manufacturing powerhouse.
But every boom has a price. Rapid industrial development can create environmental concerns. Communities must deal with traffic, noise, water demand, infrastructure pressure, and
SpaceX's expansion has transformed an area that was once relatively quiet. The company's growth has created jobs and investment. But it has also generated debates about taxes, public resources, environmental impacts, and the future of the surrounding communities. There is also a bigger question. Can Texas keep expanding indefinitely? The state is already experiencing pressure on infrastructure. Rapid population and industrial growth are straining resources. The same can eventually become challenges. More factories require more electricity, more workers require housing, more industry requires water, and more launches require careful. Texas is betting that its infrastructure can keep up. So why are space companies betting big on Texas? Because Texas offers something rare: land, energy, engineering talent, a business-friendly environment, and geography that can support major launch operations. But perhaps the biggest reason is psychological.
And the modern space industry is built around the same idea. SpaceX isn't simply trying to launch rockets. Blue Origin isn't simply selling suborbital flights. Axiom isn't simply building spacecraft.
The larger ambition is to create an economy beyond Earth: satellites, lunar missions, space stations, reusable rockets, robotics, artificial intelligence, and eventually, if that future arrives, Texas may not just be remembered as the state where rockets were built. It could become one of the places where the next chapter of human civilization was engineered. The space race once began between governments. Today, it is increasingly driven by companies, and while Florida still dominates America's launch history, Texas is building something different, a complete industrial ecosystem for the next era of space. The question is no longer, can Texas become a space state? It already has. The real question is, how far can Texas take the space industry? The next frontier may be bigger than Texas. It may be the moon, and beyond that, Mars.